Hey sports fans, are you ready for an exhilarating gaming experience? Introducing VIPclub.lv, your ultimate online sportsbook and casino. VIPclub.lv offers a vast selection of sports, from football and basketball to tennis and baseball. Bet on your favorite teams and enjoy the thrill of the game. But that's not all. Our state-of-the-art online casino offers a dazzling array of games, including slots, blackjack, roulette, and live dealer tables. Win big with their fantastic promotions, rewards, and exclusive offers. Join VIPclub.lv today and get a generous 200% match welcome bonus to start your winning streak. And make sure to use code ECSI at sign-up. Bet it, win it, and cash it at VIPclub.lv. Visit VIPclub.lv now and play responsibly. VIPclub.lv, your sportsbook and casino extravaganza. Must be 21 or older to play. Please gamble responsibly. Visit gambleware.org for help.
Good evening, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is Wednesday, July 19, 2023. In 7 hours, if my math's correct, we will be teeing off for the Open, Royal Liverpool, the last major of the PGA this season. It's been one hell of a season, a lot of stories. Major champs. So will it be a fourth there? Scotty's been knocking on the door. Rory's been knocking on the door. Brooks has captured one. It's been a hell of a run, but I'm not the expert here. I am blessed and honored. A good friend and colleague, Brady Kannon, was going to break this down for us. Excited. I was talking to him backstage about one of our algorithms that kind of blew me away, but he said, no, I believe it. So at least I feel a little better. So, but anyways, back from Hawaii, I'm jealous. The one and only Mr. Brady Kannon.
Mr. Dawson, how are you, my friend? It's great to be with you on the, I guess you can't even call it the eve of a major championship. Like you said, 7 hours away. I talk about this all the time. If you ask me what my favorite major is in July, I'm going to say the British Open. If you ask me what my favorite major is in April, I'm going to say the Masters. I get so fired up for both of these majors. Of course, the Masters kind of kicks off the major season, of course. Some people feel it kicks off golf season. It's that first really big deal that we've got on our hands. And now the Midsummer Classic, when you're watching golf, live major championship golf on your couch in the wee hours of the evening, it's just a gorgeous thing. Seeing this, the sights and the scenes across the pond and the heather and the gorse and the weather. And it has such a global feel to it, does the Open Championship, more so than any other major, I think. And it's a wonderful championship. And like I say, right now in July, it is my favorite. I might have a different answer come next April.
Well, I'm in trouble because my wife's alarm goes off at 3:45 a.m. and I usually wake up at 3 every morning. Bathroom, something to drink, and then if it's too hot or I'm uncomfortable, I go right to the couch because I can sleep a lot better and I don't have to worry about keeping her awake for that last 45 minutes. Well, I'm probably going to have the golf on and she's going to be getting ready to go to work and leave the house at 4:30 and she's going to be looking at me saying, what the hell are you doing up right now?
Well, I always say, if you ask my wife what her favorite major championship is, she doesn't split it between the Masters and the Open. The Open is definitely her favorite because I sleep on the couch for 4 nights.
I agree. I'll be there all 4 nights, so I will be there with you. Last weekend, maybe this is a dress rehearsal. We've talked about Rory knocking on the door, 9 years without a major. In one of my 2 one and dones, I did have them available. I did cash that, moved closer in the Rick Gaiman contest there. Lot of, I don't want to say flash and fades. There was some big rounds there. There was some really low shooting scores. And I started to wonder, with the Sunday, with the weather, with the threesomes, with them moving everything up, when you sat there Sunday, were you expecting Rory to pull this one off, or did you have a dark horse in line?
No, I really was surprised to see Rory pull it off. And by the time we got to Sunday, he was in position where, I believe he was in the lead, if I recall. Yeah, he had the 54-hole lead. And with the wind that was, they were talking about anywhere from kind of steady 25 to 35 miles an hour with gusts up to 40 or 50 miles an hour. I said, this is going to be a lot of carnage, and it's just going to be whoever can hang on here. I didn't expect these guys to make any birdies, and sure enough, they did. And I guess that had to do something with the fact that they started earlier in the morning, but it was still pretty darn windy. And I thought it was going to be a little bit of a train wreck, and it was just going to be the last man standing. I didn't know really who that was going to be. I thought it might be Shane Lowry, maybe Tommy Fleetwood. But these guys actually handled the conditions, surprisingly well. Rory, of course, makes 2 birdies down the stretch to win the thing. So not so surprising that he was able to hold a 54-hole lead. He's been one of the better guys ever in the history of the game to do that. But it was surprising to me how these guys were able to handle the weather. I thought that leaderboard would be quite volatile with these guys making some big numbers on Sunday, but they really didn't.
Now, I'm going to say the name, and if I'm wrong, apologize. Was it McIntyre, the lefty, correct?
Yeah, Bobby Mack, Robert McIntyre, and I know a couple of friends. Dave Tyndall over in the UK does a fantastic job as a golf writer and a golf handicapper. You can find his work at Betfair on Twitter at Dave Tyndall Golf. He, by the way, I don't know if you're familiar, Jeff, he does a 10-year trends piece for every major, and he puts it through a pretty good filter, and it's always fun to see who he comes up with. I'll let you go check that out after the show today. And then another friend, a mutual friend, Matt Humans. Both Matt Humans and Dave Tyndall were on Robert McIntyre. Humans had him all the way at 100-1. And we went out and played golf on Sunday morning. And of course, the Scottish Open being on overnight. The first thing Human says to me is, boy, I am off a rough, bad beat on the overnight there with Robert McIntyre. And I said, oh, boy. So that got his round of golf off to a poor start there that morning.
Well, again, Aaron tee shot, great lie, then probably the shot of his life to within 4 feet to get the birdie. To which I think a lot of people probably said that was going to be it. And as you said, to have Rory to birdie 17 and 18, where he's been knocking on the door a handful of times here, quite a performance. One hell of, especially the 18th, how tough it is. I think they said on the air, it's like the 4th toughest hole in the whole, in the whole season that these golfers see.
Yeah, and I believe it was the 18th hole, and I want to say it was a 2-iron. I think it was a 2-iron that Rory hit, and they were calling it, or he was calling it, I'm not sure who exactly was saying it, but one of the best shots of his entire career, and I saw the replay of it, just an incredible iron shot. And that's what got it done. And like you say, birdied the last 2 holes in that wind and failed to birdie 16, which was really the hole you're supposed to birdie. So I think a lot of people probably thought he was cooked at that point when he didn't get the birdie on 16, but just a remarkable, stretch of holes there. The final 2, a remarkable shot, really the game winning shot, if you will. And now he rolls into Royal Liverpool, the scene of the crime where he won that last major you mentioned 9 years ago. The last major he has won, coming at the British Open at Royal Liverpool in 2014. And now he comes in as the odds-on favorite as well. So the stars are aligning for Rory, certainly.
Before we get into the card, 2 big stories, I think, and I think you have a ticket in pocket at a lot better odds than it is today. Ricky Fowler, we've been talking about him now for weeks. Team Puma, just resurrected from the dead at, ranked 180 plus to where he is today. I think cracked the top 20, if I'm not mistaken. And Victor Hovland, another one that's been playing the majors, just knocking on the door. Last major, the bunker got him. and that was it for him. Before we go into the card, how does this weekend or set up for those two styles and metrics wise?
Well, I think there's a lot that you have to lean on here, Jeff, as far as strategy off the tee. It is a relatively narrow golf course, and it's not necessarily narrow fairways, but they've got a lot of fairway bunkers. So the spaces where you can land your tee ball are, in a sense, narrow. There's also out of bounds on 6 of these holes at this golf course. Internal out of bounds on a couple of holes. The 18th hole is really going to be a needle thin tee shot these guys are going to have to hit. And then you've got a little bit of wind in play there. The intermediate rough is nothing too menacing, but if you miss too far off of that, then you're in the knee-high fescue stuff, that auburn colored wispy stuff that, makes us think about the British Open. Looks so much like the seaside venues that we see this time of the year every year. So there's really a ton of trouble. And by the way, the fairway bunkers that I mentioned, if you find one of those, it's almost a guaranteed bogey. I think par is going to be extremely difficult if you find a fairway bunker. It's probably bogey or worse if you find one. So avoiding trouble is really probably going to be the first and foremost strategy, and that'll begin off the tee. Tiger Woods famously in 2006 did not find a bunker all week, only hit one driver. He led the field in driving accuracy, and he won the thing at 18 under par. Rory hit a lot of 2-irons off the tee as well. He did hit a few more drivers, but he skinned the cat a little bit differently. He actually led the field in driving distance. So there are more ways to get it done here. One thing that is different too, in 2006, the course was extremely dry, extremely firm, and very fast. And Tiger was able to kind of lay up off the tee, if you will, and still get a lot of length out of the ball, rolling on that firm and fast track. In 2014, it was much softer and greener, and maybe that allowed Rory to get the driver out a little bit more and bomb it. And I think this year, it might even be a little softer than 2014 and greener. We have had some rain there in the area recently. More rain is expected throughout the tournament here. Not anything like a downpour, it doesn't seem, but some light rain that's going to keep that golf course soft. The wind does not look to be too menacing. Your typical seaside breeze in the neighborhood of 10 to 15, 18 miles an hour. Now, all that being said, we know the weather can change on a dime in a location like this as well. But the way it looks right now, I think the weather's going to cooperate. I think these guys will be able to score. Like any major championship, you're going to need a great deal of creativity around the greens. I don't think it hurts to be a good bunker player. These sand traps, as you know, around this course are going to be treacherous. The greens are going to be very slow. We know that from past British Open championships. They always keep the greens slower over there because if you do get those crazy winds, if the greens are cut too short and are running too fast, the ball will roll right off of them. So they have to keep these things kind of long and thick and slow. And that puts a lot of good or bad putters into play. We've seen bad putters win the British Open before. I don't think putting is extremely important. The greens are relatively flat, not a whole lot of undulation. They're smaller greens with the redesign, not the redesign, but the renovation performed by Martin Ebert in 2020. He created a lot of runoff areas around these greens, smaller surfaces that you're going to have to hit on approach. But I think first and foremost, it probably boils down to the strategy off the tee and avoiding the trouble. And then from there in, you want to be a really good long iron player. And then you see if you can find a hot flat stick for 4 days.
Well, you talked about bad putters, good putters, lukewarm putters. What Scotty Scheffler has done this year is historic. It's Tiger-esque from tee to green. Does this give him an elevated advantage here with the greens the way they are?
I think it does. And we saw what he did last week. I mean, yet another top 5 finish. That's 7 in a row. now that he has finished top 5. Just absolutely incredible. And he hasn't just hung out at the top of the leaderboard. There's been a couple of tournaments where he was not that far off the cut line and came back to finish top 5. The guy's magical right now. But yeah, to your point, I do believe that is true, that this probably helps a guy like Scottie Scheffler when the putting is not nearly as difficult and maybe not as such a fine line or less room for error when you're putting on those extremely slick Augusta National type greens and what have you. I think you can be a little looser with the putter here and still hold some putts and get that ball into the hole a little easier than you might on the greens that we see week to week on the PGA Tour. So, yeah, I mean, Sergio Garcia has been a tremendous Open player. Henrik Stenson won one in 2016, has been a great Open player in addition to that. I'm trying to think of some other, mediocre to poor putters, but Stenson and Garcia certainly popped to the top of my head as a couple of guys that were never regarded as tremendous putters, and both were fantastic Open players. So Scottie Scheffler could become that this week.
Last question before we dig in, it kind of correlates here. Defending champ Cam Smith, Live Golf. We know the merge is on its way. Brooks kind of comically keeping it, mum's the word. Well, we'll wait to see when, we don't decide a championship or a golf tournament on Saturday. So let's wait till the everything's finished here. Live and defending chair Cam, is there anyone on the Live Tour that you think might have a getting into form, lathering up at the right time? Or do you think Cam Smith, defending champ, this is a perfect spot where he might be able to defend?
Well, Cam Smith is a great player, and I think he's probably got a chance no matter where he tees it up and no matter when he tees it up. But I believe this golf course is going to be more difficult for his style of play. He does really well at Augusta National. He obviously won a couple of years ago at Kapalua, and he played extremely well and won the British Open at St. Andrews. All of those courses have big, wide fairways, and he tends to spray the ball around a little bit off the tee. You're not going to be able to spray the ball around at Royal Liverpool this week. We just talked about it. All the trouble, the out of bounds, the knee-high rough fescue grass that is not too far off of the fairways, the very penal fairway bunkers. You're not going to have a lot of room for error, and you'll be able to miss. Obviously these guys are not going to hit it perfect 100% of the time, but you can't have big misses. You can have a little bit of a miss and not get into too much trouble and be okay. But if you have a big miss, you're going to be in trouble. And I think Cameron Smith is prone to have a bigger miss than a lot of these guys off the tee. If I was going to look at anybody from the Live circuit, Brooks Koepka, I think is always somebody you have to talk about in major championships. And I expect he'll probably play pretty well once again. But I tell you what, if I had to choose one Live guy this week, this guy has as good a track record as anybody in the world at the British Open, and that's Dustin Johnson. I'd be interested to see, or I am interested to see what Dustin Johnson does this week. I know some very sharp people who like DJ this week. He also, his form is not too bad. He just finished 10th at the U.S. Open, Los Angeles Country Club last month, and that's a very links-ish type style course as well. So, it feels like out of sight, out of mind. We're not sure how these guys are really playing right now because we don't see them so much as they have defected to Live. But DJ obviously showed up a month ago at the U.S. Open. I think the form is probably pretty solid. He has such an affinity for this style of golf. He's performed so well over here in the past. I think he's got a real good shot to fare well once again.
It's funny because we had him on our card the first two majors, and I left him off in the third major, and I was just squirming the whole weekend. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did this. So I'm glad you brought him up. But it's time. The fairway is yours. Outrights, first round leaders, head to head. The stage is yours, my friend.
All right. Very good. So I went almost to the very top of the board. Gentlemen, we were just discussing earlier, I did play Scottie Scheffler at plus 750. I've seen lower than that. I've seen slightly higher than that. Somewhere basically between 7 and 8 is probably what you're looking at for Scottie Scheffler. We talked about all he's done, 14 straight tournaments where he has gained 2 strokes or more off the tee, and also 5 straight tournaments where he has gained 6 or more strokes on approach, and then, of course, the 7 straight top 5 finishes. Since 2015, Scottie Scheffler has only played 22 rounds of links golf, but over that time, he has gained 1.85 strokes on the field. Now, a correlated course, I'll give you all the correlated courses that I used this week. We talked a little bit about the handicap, the strategy off the tee and the long iron play and the creativity around the greens. The other part of my handicap is the correlated courses. As far as links courses, I looked at the Renaissance Club where they played the Scottish Open last week. Of course, Scottie Scheffler finished 3rd. He's also got another top 10 finish at the Scottish Open prior to this year. And then I also looked at Muirfield, where Phil Mickelson won in 2013. I looked at Troon, where Henrik Stenson won in 2016. And then Royal Portrush, where Shane Lowry won in 2019. Portrush also had a renovation job done by Martin Ebert, the same guy that performed the work here at Liverpool. And then stateside, I looked at 2 courses that I felt had similar, not only layouts, but type of strategy that they bring to the table. And that's PGA National, where they play the Honda Classic, and then TPC Sawgrass, where they play the Players Championship. The Players Championship is similar to what we were talking about, Jeff, where there is very little room for error. You know about all the water on that course. You have to be deadly accurate. You have to be flushing your ball from a ball striking perspective, and you can't have big misses. That's kind of the same what we're looking at here at Hoy Lake. If you look at the last 2 British Opens at this golf course, 2006 when Tiger was there, Sergio Garcia fell into that top 5 in 2006. Those are 2 Players Championship winners right there in Tiger and Sergio. And also Jim Furyk was in that top 5 in 2006, who has finished runner-up at the Players Championship. Fast forward to 2014 when Rory won it. 4 out of the top 5 guys on that leaderboard had won the Players Championship, and the 5th guy was Jim Furyk again. I think there's a strong connection between that avoiding trouble and playing more defensively and conservatively and trying to stay, find areas of safety, different from your week-to-week PGA Tour golf where you're always on the attack and you always want to be aggressive and hit it as far as you can. This is a more defensive approach, and I think Hoy Lake and PGA National, the Honda Classic, and the Players Championship, I think they kind of share that approach. Scottie Scheffler, by the way, in March, just won the Players Championship. Tyrrell Hatton finished 2nd to Scottie Scheffler at that Players Championship back in March. I took him at 27-1. Over the course of 113 rounds since 2015, 113 rounds of links golf, Tyrrell Hatton has gained 1.7 strokes on the field in that time. He was 4th at the Honda Classic in his career. I mentioned the 2nd place at the Players Championship back in March. The last 36 rounds, he is 3rd in this field for strokes gained approach. So I did land on Hatton at 27-1. We were talking again backstage. You mentioned Xander Schauffele. I really kind of struggled with either going with Schauffele or Hatton. And eventually, for a few different reasons, I landed on Hatton. I could be dead wrong. Who knows? Maybe they finish 1-2. I wouldn't be so disappointed with that. But I think both of those guys have a real good shot this week. You just can't pick everybody. And I ended up with Tyrrell Hatton. And then I went to Adam Scott, Justin Rose at 60-1. You know this, Jeff. You've been watching this championship a long time. It's not uncommon for 40-something-year-olds to win this championship. Justin Rose will be 43 years old at the end of this month. This will be his 20th playing in a British Open championship, and he's had a number of top 10 finishes. He's done well on the correlated courses. He was 23rd here at Royal Liverpool in 2014, 22nd at Troon in 2016, and 20th at Portrush in 2019. Also finished 6th at the Players Championship back in March. He's got 3 top 10 finishes at the Honda Classic. He is very accurate off the tee. He is not tremendously long, and that's why some of these older guys can handle the British Open, because you don't have to be always so long in this championship. Distance is probably required less at this major than any of the other 3. And that's why we see Tom Watson and Darren Clark. And I mean, Phil Mickelson, people forget, he was 43 when he won this back in 2013. So Justin Rose, I think, is that elder statesman that really fits that profile. Very accurate off the tee, tremendous bunker player, maybe the best sand player in this entire field, great long iron player, and a great putter. He really has all the tools that you need this week for Hoy Lake. And then Adam Scott, who I think is kind of, the same recipe as Justin Rose, an elder statesman, a guy in his early 40s. This will be his 23rd British Open championship. He's finished top 10 5 times. He's also finished runner-up. He is 15th in this field the last 36 rounds for strokes gained off the tee. And the guy's found his putting stroke. The last couple of years, Adam Scott has been a really good putter. The Australians seem to really know how to play in the wind. Adam Scott is a prime example of a guy that has been tremendous on links golf. Also won a Players Championship, also won a Honda Classic. So I got him at 80 to 1. You can even find higher than that, I believe. I think there's some 100 to 1s out there on Adam Scott. And then Ricky Fowler, you touched on it earlier. I do have him in pocket at 80 to 1. Kind of unfair to sell that too much right now. But I will tell you that I still don't think he's a bad bet. I would say if you could get north of 25 or better. Less than that, I don't love it a whole lot. God bless you if you could find a 30, but somewhere in that pocket, I still don't think is too poor on Ricky Fowler. And hey, I got a great number. It doesn't matter if he doesn't win. But I think he has all the tools. The long iron play, the work off of the tee, the short game is terrific. He's won the Scottish Open before. He's won the Players before. He's won the Honda before. He's also finished runner-up at both of those tournaments. And, of course, he comes off of a win at the Rocket Mortgage. And you and I were talking about that. I was kind of hoping Ricky wouldn't win and he would peak here at Royal Liverpool. But I kind of went back on that and second-guessed myself. And I said, you know what? I think it's actually good that he won, because now he's kind of got that monkey off his back and he won't necessarily have that pressure of, a major championship on Sunday. He'll certainly have that pressure if he's in that spot for sure, but he got a taste of that at the US Open. He was able to close the door at the Rocket Mortgage. I think it's actually good the way he's coming in as far as the form prep, if you will, what has gone on as of late for Ricky Fowler. If you look at what some of his numbers are over the last 36 rounds, he is 6th in this field for strokes gained approach and 2nd for strokes gained around the green. Since 2015, he has played 66 rounds of links golf and gained 1.58 strokes on the field. So, Ricky Fowler kind of seems like that storybook, Disney movie guy you want to win, but the numbers don't lie and what he's done doesn't lie either. I don't know if I mentioned also a Scottish Open winner is Ricky Fowler. This was maybe the first story we talked about. This is one of the first things that led me to land on him way back when I did. He finished runner-up here at Hoy Lake to Rory in 2014. So there are a number of reasons to like Ricky Fowler this week. I think you could also argue that as far as Americans go, he might be the very best American wind player. And he's going to be tested, of course, with some wind this week at Hoy Lake. 90 to 1, I landed on Hideki Matsuyama. He's got top 20 finishes, 2 top 20 finishes in the Open, and he also finished 6th at Muirfield, one of our correlated courses. He was 39th here at Hoy Lake in 2014. Also, 3 times he has finished top 10 at the Players Championship. Over the last 36 rounds, Matsuyama is 7th in this field for strokes gained approach, 15th for strokes gained around the green, 4th in hole proximity from 175 to 200 yards, 14th from 200 yards or more, and 4th in bogey avoidance. Those stats right there are key to the puzzle this week at Hoy Lake. I mentioned the long iron play, 175 to 225, bogey avoidance, off the tee approach. Hideki really does all of it really well. And I thought 90-1 was pretty ridiculous as far as a price. I have seen it come down closer to 70. And then finally, a 1 triple-digit long bomb on Siwoo Kim. Got him at 165-1. I've seen that number come down as well in the neighborhood of 125. But here's a trend for you that I think does make some sense. And this is pretty true for most of the majors, but 8 of the last 10 Open champions had gotten a win earlier in that same season before going on to hoist the claret jug. And Siwoo Kim, of course, has a win earlier this year at the Sony Open, as does Ricky Fowler, as does Scotty Scheffler, as does Justin Rose. So a lot of my guys have that win in their pocket coming in. He also has 2 top 10 finishes at the Players' Championship, including a win. He is 12th in this field for strokes gained off the tee over the last 36 rounds. 14th on strokes gained on the par 4s between 450 and 500 yards, and 28th in strokes gained approach. So the Great 8, the Elite 8, makes up the outright card this week, Jeff.
Before we go to the next part here, one question. The social media darling, I think this week, I've gotten a lot of questions on him. You talk about bunker play. You talk about scrambling, work around the greens, and I use the word magic beans. I know he's not in form. Maybe he wakes up and has 4 great rounds. What was your take when you were doing your research on Jordan Spieth this week?
I like Spieth. Spieth has never missed a cut at a British Open. And Jordan Spieth is one of my favorite players because I love his creativity. He is really an artist. There are more brute strength, robot type guys. John Rahm is a powerful bull in a china shop, and Jordan Spieth is a little bit more of that artist. And you can get it done both ways. Obviously, both guys have taken their style of play to Augusta National and come out with a green jacket. But I think the artistry is what you need also in British Open play. Being able to see things a little bit differently, the creativity, Seve Ballesteros and Mickelson, both British Open winners, of course. And Spieth, I think, has that in spades, the way he is able to create shots and has the imagination. And I think that's required for British Open play. So I think he's almost live no matter what. It's a little bit like Augusta National. No matter what form Jordan Spieth is in, he's live at Augusta, and I think it's pretty similar for a British Open. Again, I know one very sharp guy that likes Spieth this week. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not on him because he just has been a little bit off the radar a little bit. He missed the cut at the U.S. Open and just hasn't been that really tremendous for, it seems like, a couple, 3 months now. He got off to a pretty good start this year, but he's cooled off a little bit. So he didn't make my card. And I realized I only gave you 7. I missed the 8th piece there of the puzzle. I'm also on Colin Morikawa at 30-1. And I've seen numbers a little bit higher on him. I've seen as high as 38, and then that quickly came back down. I've seen as low as 25. But Morikawa fits everything I was talking about this week. A tremendous long iron player, very accurate off the tee, good work around the greens. He is not, and it was amazing when he won the British Open in 2021. I was on Spieth that year, who finished runner-up, and Colin Morikawa went crazy with the putter. So he's shown that he can get hot with the flat stick, and actually he's been putting a lot better as of late. Of course, he went to that playoff at the Rocket Mortgage with Ricky Fowler. So the putter and the short game is probably the only thing you have to worry about with Colin Morikawa, but he's shown that he has taken a liking to links golf very quickly, winning his first British Open he ever played in 2021 at Royal St. George's. He is 3rd in this field for strokes gained approach over the last 36 rounds. He is 5th on tour in driving accuracy. And it's been a little bit of an up and down season for Colin Morikawa this year. But if you look at what he's done in the majors, 10th at the Masters, 26th at the PGA, and 14th at the U.S. Open, and then that near miss at the Rocket Mortgage. So he could be peaking at just the right time.
And that's 1-2 on one of our sources, Xander and Morikawa, for that algorithm that we were talking about backstage. So I think you definitely, I love all 8 plays. The last question that I'd ask you is, do you get nervous, and I'll use a little pun here, with Rahm hiding in the fescue? He's one of those names that is third at DraftKings right now at plus 1,300 that it seems like no one's talking about.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that always does concern me when nobody's talking about, you could argue, who the best player in the world is. So it's a little scary, but I think there's also something to be said for a guy that wins a major, and it's kind of tough to come back from that sometimes. Brooks Koepka, after he won the PGA, we saw him stub his toe, for another month or two after that. I mean, he was having a good time, and not that necessarily has anything to do with it either, but it's almost like a hangover to bring yourself all the way to that level again. It is pretty tough to repeat in such a short turnaround. And so Jon Rahm wins the Masters, and that was grueling too. That took a lot out of everybody that week with the weather and everything that was going on. And he just hasn't quite been the same since then. He did make a run at the Mexico Open at Vedanta when Tony Finau won, but yeah, he's just been off the boil a little bit. But again, he's Jon Rahm, and it could change in a heartbeat for sure.
Awesome. First round leader or head to head, whatever's easier for you.
Let me rattle them both off here for you. For the full tournament head to head matchups, I have 4 of them. And I went with Thorbjorn Olesen at minus 120 over Rasmus Højgaard, a couple of European Tour players there. Olesen, many years ago, I want to say this is probably 6-8 years ago, was really starting to make a name for himself on the big stage. And he was competing in major championships. He got into a little bit of trouble with the law not too long ago, and he was kind of off the map here for about the last 3 or 4 years, but he's won a couple of times recently, and he seems back on the rebound here. Had a nice week last week at the Scottish Open. So Thorbjorn Olesen at minus 120 over Rasmus Højgaard. Siwoo Kim at minus 120 over Sahith Theegala. Justin Rose at plus 117 over Matt Fitzpatrick. And then Xander Schauffele at minus 140 over Shane Lowry. And back to Schauffele again here. I did play him for a first round leader, Jeff. I did not take him outright for the tournament. I'd kind of like to have him in my pocket, but again, you can only have so many. I did take him for a first round leader. If you remember, he tied Ricky Fowler for the first round lead at the US Open last month. If you look at what he's done as far as the Open Championship since 2017, Schauffele has fired rounds in the Open that have gained 3 or more strokes on the field on 6 occasions. And 3 of those times he has gained 5 or more strokes on the field. So he has had some rounds where he has really gone low in link style golf at Open Championships. Over the last 36 rounds, he ranks 5th in this field for strokes gained approach, and he is 13th for strokes gained putting on slow greens. He has also finished as high as runner-up at TPC Sawgrass. He was the winner at the Scottish Open at the Renaissance Club in 2022, and he is 5th on tour in first-round scoring average. My next play, another guy we just spoke about, I landed on Jordan Spieth for a first-round leader. I mentioned he'd never missed the cut at an Open. He won at Royal Birkdale in 2017. He also was the first-round leader, shot a 65 in 2017 when he went on to win that year. When he finished runner-up to Colin Morikawa in 2021, he sat second after round 1, opening with a 65 once again. It's also worth noting that I believe it is just 2 of the last 18 Open Championship winners have not landed in the top 10 after day 1. So if you're sitting outside of the top 10 after day 1, you're in a company of only 2 of the last 18 major champions. So you got to get off to a fast start here. The other thing is the last 10 Open champions, all 10 of them have ranked in the top 40 in the official world golf ranking, and 6 of them have ranked in the top 10. So in other words, the cream rises to the top here. You're likely to get a class player to win this thing. and you're likely to need to find yourself in the top 10 after day one. So I went with class players, figuring they're going to get off to a hot start, that have a chance to win the whole darn thing, not just Thursday. So Schauffele at 35-1, Jordan Spieth at 40-1, and then I went back to Matsuyama. And Matsuyama, we talked about his statistics, but also the correlated course, the Players' Championship. It was just before the world of golf shut down in 2020. You may recall the very last tournament was the opening round of the Players' Championship. Hideki Matsuyama, I had him. I had him at about 40-1 to win that thing. He starts off with a course record 63. He was the first round leader at the Players' Championship, and then we know the rest of the story from there. But obviously, this guy has a good history at Sawgrass. He has gotten out to a first round lead with a course record 63 there before. He has been top three times at the Players' Championship. He has that 6th place finish at Muirfield, another correlated course. We talked about how good he is on approach, around the greens. Another stat that I really like that applies, I believe, to first round leader, 4th in this field over the last 36 rounds in bogey avoidance. And I got Hideki at 66-1. So those are the first round leader plays there: Schauffele, Spieth, and Hideki.
Back on the head-to-head, you had Rose at plus 117. Was it against Fitzy?
Yes, sir, over Fitzpatrick.
And then
I've actually seen that number kind of move away from me a little bit. I haven't looked at it in about 24 hours, but I saw it move a little bit towards Fitzpatrick, and I think Rose ought to be maybe favored in that matchup. So, whatever.
And Xander versus who?
Xander at minus 140 over Shane Lowry.
Okay. All righty, sir. Wow, I got some work to do.
And not much time left to do it.
You're right. Usually I can go from here. I can get my cardio in, make a nice dinner, get ready to watch you at 10:15 on Sports Grid, and then go put the plays in. Now, I got a lot of work still here to do. So I'm excited. And, of course, to be up at 1 a.m. to see the opening shot. So I can't wait there as well. So the scroll has been going the whole time. I'm going to allow you to tell everyone where they can find all your great work, Brady.
Well, of course, right here on the East Coast Sports Investors Podcast every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I really enjoy the conversation with you, Jeff, week in and week out. Las Vegas Golfer on Twitter, at Las Vegas Golfer. You can keep up to date with everything that I'm doing. I encourage you to go take a look and a listen to our Heat Strokes podcast. Matt Humans was my co-host yesterday. We've also got a golf giveaway contest on there for the British Open you might want to get involved with. Earn yourself a free round of golf out here in Las Vegas. That's Heat Strokes podcast. And then, as you mentioned, on Sports Grid now 4 times a week as a featured guest, talking golf and maybe some football down the road. And then also doing some writing for the PGA Tour. My article for the first round leader play just came out at pgatour.com. I'll have another article after the cut and see who we like going into the weekend at Hoy Lake.
Well, I'm a little disappointed the fact that it's the last major and then we get a couple weeks and then it's the FedEx Cup. Yes, I know everyone's going to rejoice because football will be here before you know it. But I just love our Wednesdays, and God willing, hopefully this fall we can keep it moving. And for you, congrats with Sports Grid, as they're just slowly putting 1 show, 2 show, 3 show. Next thing it's going to be host, and then here, and the rest is. So we can't thank you enough, Brady. Congrats.
Well, thank you very much. And I know it is kind of a little bit disappointing to see the final major of the year, but soak up every bit of it, man. It's too good. I hope we cash some tickets. That will make it all the more enjoyable.
Absolutely. Everyone, please go follow Brady at Las Vegas Golfer. Go and check out the Heat Strokes podcast. Also, dive into the contest. Win a free round of golf out in Vegas. Maybe you can meet Brady and Matt Yeomans in person and, chew the fat with them. So plenty. Make sure everyone catches you as well at 10:15 on Sports Grid TV. From myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, the one and only Brady Kannon at Las Vegas Golfer. A lot of tickets out there, guys. Let's cash some. Let's stay out of the bunker, in the fairways, and we'll land on the greens on Sunday. So everyone have a great evening, and we will see you soon.